What's up everybody, this is Dr. Brandon Osborne, the Director of Training here at Momentum WOD. Today I want to take the opportunity to break down a video that I found online from somebody who's pretty well known in the strength and conditioning space for mixed martial arts. His name is Phil Daru, formerly the Director of Training at ATT, American Top Team, and has trained the likes of Dustin Poirier and Joanna Jędrzejczyk. Anyway, he's been training with some professional athletes in the past, and he's a big advocate for kettlebell training in his strength and conditioning routines. So today what I want to do is I want to take a look at one of his workouts, break it down, give some feedback, maybe some areas that he can improve what he's doing, or where you can utilize the information to improve what you're doing. So let's take a look. Okay, so the first thing, a minor detail when it comes to kettlebell training. We talk about kettlebells in kilograms, we don't talk about them in pounds. Minor detail, but a sticking point for the community at large. So another thing I'm observing right off the bat is Phil, he's training in shoes. Generally when we're training kettlebells, we have very flat-soled shoes, or we're training barefoot. This is for a couple of reasons. One, it's going to help to strengthen the feet, especially if you're training as a mixed martial artist or a jiu-jitsu practitioner. You want to strengthen those muscles because those are going to be relevant to your performance. The second thing is, by training in bare feet, it's going to increase what's called proprioceptive input. So you're going to get more neurologic input through your feet, which is going to help you to better control positional awareness and just have a better awareness when it comes to your body as a whole. That exercise he was just performing, called the halo, when he first got into that position, I'm going to pause the video here. When he first got into that position, if you notice from the lateral view, he had the bell away from his body. What you want to do is you want to keep that really close to your body, and that's going to allow for better control, better postural stabilization, and a better chance that you don't get injured as you're working through that exercise. The farther away that bell is from your body, the more your shoulders and your elbows are going to take the brunt of it, which is not the point. It's supposed to be a stabilization-based movement and a mobilization-based movement as that bell is circumnavigating your head. Let's keep going. So yeah, he's just talking through a couple of the points that I just brought up here about the bell, the trajectory. Another thing, he's doing it, I'm doing it here. Don't wear a hat when doing this exercise. That is not going to help the cause. There's a good chance that the bell gets snagged along the hat as you're working around your head. Don't use a hat. Don't wear a hat. Okay, so here, I'm going to pause it again, a little sticking point with regards to his technique. It's clear to me that watching his videos, he doesn't have a formal education when it comes to kettlebell training. And this isn't me being trying to put him down. It's just apparent when you look at his technique when he's working through these exercises. So he cleaned the bell to what's called a front rack position, and if you notice the technique that he used when he cleaned it, the bell flipped over onto his wrist. To me, this says that he either doesn't have an understanding of the exercise or he hasn't been taught how to do it properly. When you're cleaning that bell up into that position, you want to keep that elbow close to your body, and the bell should rotate around your wrist rather than flipping onto your wrist. That's going to help to reduce strain on your elbow once again, and it's going to help to reduce impact on your forearm, which is going to get really uncomfortable if you do that over a long period of time. So, little tip for Phil and for you if you're watching, don't do that. Okay, so the exercise he's about to go into is what's called a windmill. This is a great exercise for mobilization, particularly of the hips. It's a good postural exercise. It's a good isometric strength exercise. The issue with what Phil is doing here, and I'm not trying to pick on him, but there's some errors in his technique. As he's working through this position, notice his back leg, the leg on the side where he's holding the kettlebell overhead. He's got to bend to that leg. When you're performing this movement, you want to visualize that leg lifting and the hips shifting. So for him, he's just more of like bending and compressing, whereas to do it properly, you want to elongate that spine, create a long thoracic spine to really create depth of that movement, lift and shift those hips. So what I mean by that, back leg should be straight, and he should be tracing his free hand along the inside of his leg as opposed to the outside. So for him, it's probably a matter of a lack of mobility through this movement, like he just doesn't have the requisite range of motion to be able to do it properly. But if that's the case for you, either you want to regress the movement back down to something that's more simple, like you could even do this in a kneeling position, or you just don't force the range of motion. Work within a range of motion that your body's allowing for. So let's keep going. Okay, and I can see it out of the corner of the screen too. His wrist isn't strong when it's in this overhead position. He's got a little bit of extension there, which can create some problems long term if you continue training in this fashion. Strong wrist. Super relevant for a martial artist as well, especially if you're training in a gi. So Phil's chatting us up right now. He's got a great beard. Really can't argue with that. It's pretty jacked too. Alright, so we're going to go through a sequence here where we're doing some push presses and some swings. And I like that contrast, a ballistic movement and a little bit more of like a strength-based movement. So at Momentum WOD we do 3 different styles of training, one of which is called Fortified, and that's kind of the basis, the combination of those strength-based movements and those ballistic movements. So we're watching him swing here. Once again, we saw that bell flip onto his forearm when he got to a front rack position. I'm going to pause here where he is about to press the bell into this overhead position. Once again, he's in a front rack. His wrist is a little bit cracked open, so you want to keep that nice and strong. Forearm should be vertical there. And if you look at his elbow in proximity to his body, his arm is almost externally rotated at the shoulder. So what that's going to do, once again, it's going to create excess pressure at the shoulder, excess pressure at the elbow, and a lack of control through that movement. At no point when you're in a front rack position should that elbow be away from your body. We want that close to your body. We want that lat nice and packed and strong through that range of motion, and then you're driving the bell overhead from there. So for him, that wrist is cracked, that arm is externally rotated. It's an invitation to get injured while you're doing this. We don't want that to happen. Let's keep going. Okay, so his swings look pretty good. He's a little shallow in terms of his hip hinge. He could probably go a little bit deeper into that hip hinge to get a little bit more power out of it. Once again, we see that wrist cracked and arm externally rotated. And on this left side, as he's performing these swings, I'm going to pause once more. At the top of the range of motion, you can kind of see that bell flutter a little bit. To me, that suggests one of a couple of things. One, he doesn't have his lat packed as he's swinging that bell out in front of him, so his stabilization at the top of that range of motion is lacking. 2, it could be that his grip is slipping, for which we always talk about it at Momentum WOD. You want to use chalk when you're performing one-arm swings, especially if you're getting up there in weight, because that's going to help to prevent your grip from slipping as you progress if your hands get sweaty or anything like that. And it's also going to help prevent injuries of overtraining that can affect your hands, your wrists, or your forearms. So definitely chalk up before performing this exercise to prevent that bell from getting squirrely as it's extending away from your body. Speaking from experience, slipping out of your hand while you're performing a one-arm swing is not a good thing. You don't want to do that. Let's keep going here. Okay, so he just clean to the front rack once again. Arm is out, elbow, wrist is cracked, arm is out, and he flipped that bell back onto that forearm again. So he's talking about rest period. Really depends on what your goal is. If your goal is conditioning, you're obviously going to drop that rest period a little bit lower. If your goal is power or strength, you're going to raise that up a little bit more so. Overall, I like the movements that he chose. The halo is a great exercise. If you're initially looking to get into kettlebell training, or if you're looking to mobilize kind of your upper extremities before starting a workout, It's a good core exercise, going to keep your spine in a nice neutral position. The windmill, I wouldn't say is a good exercise for a beginner, but it's a good exercise overall. And lastly, that combination of a power-based movement and a strength-based movement, it's a good combination to get into for a simple workout that's going to be efficient and effective. If you've enjoyed this video, please hit the thumbs up button. Subscribe if you want more content like this. Every Friday we drop a new kettlebell workout for your jiu-jitsu performance, so make sure you tune in on Fridays to get some of that. And if you're interested, we have a free 7-day trial of our Momentum WOD performance training system. The link will be in the description below. Make sure you check that out. Thanks for tuning in today. I will see you next time. Dr. Brandon Osborne from MomentumWOD.com. Thanks.